Welcome, everyone. It is just 6 o'clock, so top of the hour. Um, we're excited to have you here with us for the third session of Gear Up New Jersey, brought to you by 9848 Team Gearview, a program offered by 9848 to all folks that are part of the Gear Up New Jersey enterprise. We are really excited to have you be a part of this. And we have three fantastic presenters with us today from Team 9848. I will just briefly introduce myself and send apologies and regrets from Mrs. Barrero, who is a little under the weather and unable to be with us tonight. My name is Robin Dole, and I am one of the mentors and volunteer coaches for 9848 and supporting actually all the teams from Clearview High School in the FTC program. We've had two other sessions. Hopefully you joined us for Mentoring 101 and Unlocking the Portfolio. And now the next logical opportunity is to talk a little bit about the judging presentation. And we've got three folks from our team, Jonah, Stephen, and James from Team 9848 to share some information. Please note that the Q&A is open, and as the presentation happens, if you have questions, we would love for you to populate them right in the Q&A, and we will get to all of those questions in a very dynamic session at the end of the formal presentation. And so with that, I believe I'm turning it over to Stephen.
Okay, so hello everybody, and welcome to our presentation. I'm so glad everyone could make it here. So let's just get right into this. All right, how do you succeed in judging? It's a very stressful part about robotics, and especially because we're not used to public speaking in this kind of manner, right? Judging is a chance to kind of get out of your comfort zone and speak to people you're not really familiar with. So what's going to be briefly covered during this presentation is, first off, the importance of judging, where James will kind of go through why judging is needed. And also a little bit about like what to expect during a judging presentation. Then Jonah is going to hop on over and tell you some common questions that you can be expected to hear during judging. And then I'll come in lastly and kind of share some tips about preparing for judging and everything in that regard. So let's get started right into it with James.
All right. So we all know judging, it can be a very stressful thing. A lot of times it feels like something that you're just kind of forced to do and you don't really see the benefit of it. But it is a very, very, very important aspect of robotics, and it's really a chance to make your team shine. So, yeah. The first part of it is the elastic evaluation. So it's going to help you reach a little bit past how your robot performs, and it's going to let you kind of talk about your team, your strategy, your innovations, and get a little bit deeper into who you are as a team. It's going to allow you to display your efforts and to kind of get into how you got your team there beyond just what the judges can see off your portfolio and robot. Past that, it's really, really, really helpful as a team to grow in what I think is most important, the communication aspect, because you have to, get up there to something that a lot of people are very uncomfortable with, speaking publicly. But now you have a pretty small crowd and that you're presenting to, and you have to be dynamic with your team. You have to know what you're going to say. You have to think on the spot. So it's a big opportunity for growth. Beyond that, also, it's going to encourage you to develop your engineering skills by having to review your robot, and you're also going to have to look over your portfolio and really understand your team if you want to go unprepared. So that's going to help you grow. There's also, this is the big thing about judging, is the awards. This is how you're really going to be able to make your case to the judges for your awards, because as we'll mention, they're your spokespeople. So these are the people that are going to be advocating for you for certain awards. So this is your chance to really display certain parts of your team that apply to certain awards that you're trying to go for. And then obviously, because you're giving this presentation and doing this Q&A with some experienced judges, hopefully experienced judges, you'll be given feedback. You'll be allowed to kind of, grow as a team because of the experience. And also note that, sorry, I know you moved on. You have to have two people there, and you can't have a adult mentor in the room. So what should you be expecting? So first of all, there's not really stress with time because you'll have a scheduled block, so you know exactly when they're going to go in. You'll be able to go and prepare. So you have that going for you. In terms of how long it's going to last, it should last no more than 10 minutes. I will note, depending on the judge, it can go over with the Q&A, but plan for around 10 minutes. This is split into two portions. So you have your initial presentation. It's 5 minutes long. There's no interruptions by the judges. You state your case. You usually have maybe a script, and you go through your whole team talking about your robot, aspects of your portfolio, and it's good to focus on outreach a lot because that can't be displayed as much just on the field. And then the Q&A segment, which is where I know that's probably some of the more one of the more stressful bits of it. That's the last 5 minutes, and again, it can run over a little bit, but that's where you can kind of display your ability to think on the spot, and you have a little bit more freedom to take what the judge says and run with a little bit to talk about things that you think are really going to help your team in terms of awards. And then in terms of the criteria focus, you want to kind of target towards these certain award criteria, and it'll help you a lot with the Q&A and presentation because you can understand what you should be focusing on. So say you're going for the design award, you can really try to point out certain key creative aspects of your robot. Say if they ask a question about how you came up with a sorting system. Now you can go in and talk about how you got there, the process, the cost-benefit analysis that you might have done to really get to the bottom of why your team should get the design award. And you don't say that, but you kind of assume it to them or infer it to them. And then after you leave the room, obviously they're going to talk amongst themselves and make their decision. This is where afterward they're going to try to state your case to the rest of the judges and deliberate with them privately, and then they'll announce it during the award ceremony. Now, to be prepared, the number one thing is to know your material. Obviously, it can be a little bit scary. There's a lot to understand about your team. But if you go in and you've read through your whole team's portfolio and you know what your team has done over the years, maybe know some statistics, how many maybe mentors you've reached out to, if you've gone on any tours, that kind of thing, how much money you've raised. And then your robot is the second part of that, the technical aspect. And so you want to know how your robot operates, maybe, how many sensors are on it, because they could ask questions about that, and just being prepared. So when they ask these questions, you're not stumbling over yourselves. You have an idea in your head. And a very good way to prepare for this is in terms of a practice. And we're going to mention that a lot because that's the number one way to kind of get a feel for it. Because you're not going to be able to, it's a one-time thing. You go in there and you do your best, and it's like a one-shot opportunity. And that can be kind of scary. But if you practice either independently or what's more beneficial is with your whole team, you can get a feel for how it's going to flow, how much time it's going to take. And then practicing asking or getting asked some difficult questions will allow you to think on the spot and, make these decisions, understand who's going to be answering these questions and what they're going to say. And it's very important to focus on team coordination as well, because, as they're asking these questions, it's your responsibility to know, maybe who's going to focus on it. So if they ask a question about how your team, code your autonomous, you can have your programmer assigned to questions like those because they will know the most about it and will be able to give the most clear answer. And so this way you're going to avoid jumbling over each other when they're asking these questions, because that it'll look a little bit unprofessional, and it's going to take your team time. So if they ask a question and you have your designated person step up, it's very clear who's going to answer, and they articulate it well. It's going to look professional, and you're going to be able to get a very concise and impactful answer without all the confusion in between. And then, of course, you want to be in your team attire. You want to be displaying this unity among your team. It looks professional, and it's going to really drill into the judge's brain that, oh, say for us, it's Team 984 Gear View. You know, you can see all the jerseys. There's a clear brand with it. So they're going to remember that a little bit more when they make their decisions. And then I guess it goes a little bit without, mention, but you want to have confidence, and you want to, like, this comes a lot with practice, is you want to be able to step into that room having the mindset that you're going to do fantastic and being practiced and prepared enough to be able to execute this judging without any hiccups. So, and then pit judging, it's often overlooked by a lot of teams because it doesn't seem as important as judging. But this is where it's kind of like the Q&A session where you get to display the things that you really want to focus on about your team. So this is a little bit less stressful than the actual judging because, it's a little bit more free form. Someone will come to you and ask a question, and you get to kind of take that where you think is going to be best for your team. So it's important to mention not every team is going to get the secondary pit judging. And you may or may not have them come to your table, and it can be, influenced by a few aspects, if they're, depending on what they're interested in. So if they see they're really interested in your robot design, they may come and ask about that. If they come and, you said something during judging that they want to follow up on, they may come and, oh, you mentioned something about attending this event or getting this mentor, going on a tour. Can you tell us more about it? And that way you get to go from that and spread out a little bit into the things that you think are important for them to know. In terms of what they're going to ask you, the topics, they're free to ask about really anything they want about your team. It could be either, tech or non-tech. And it's important to mention that a lot of times these judges will come to your table looking for certain awards. So if you see a judge coming to your table asking about something specific about outreach, that might mean that they're considering, say, you for a certain award. So it's good to take that and spread out. Like, okay, maybe they're here for, say it was tech, maybe they're here for the design award. And then you could, start pointing out key aspects of your robot, how you got there, the process that you took. And it's not a solo thing. You can have multiple people in your pit helping you out. So it's a little bit less like you on the spot. You have your teammates there who also know things about your team. So maybe if you don't know something as much about how you got to a design, your teammate who might have worked in CAD or design can chime in and help with that. And to be prepared with this, it's all about just, again, knowing your stuff, knowing what you can about how your robot got to designs, the events that you attended, how much money you raised, how you raised that money. So there's a lot of different things that there is to be prepared on because they can ask about, really whatever they're interested in. So it's good to be there and not be as stressed by knowing what you're going to talk about and knowing the key things that you want to guide them towards that you think are most interesting about your team. It's also important to have people at your pit who you think can articulate well and can represent your team on behalf of the judges, as well as having a clean and appealing pit, because that's going to make them think of your team more professionally and be more inclined to come to your table.
So now we're going to go over some common questions that you guys may see, like how they associate to each award, and some tips and tricks about how to answer them. So judges are not there to intimidate you. They're not there to scare you. They just want to learn about your team. They just want you they're like a friend. They just want to know like more about your team, ask about what you did where, and how that made an impact. So when it comes to being graciously professional, the key to answering that question is to give examples. And you're going to hear me say that a lot throughout this presentation, is that examples are key. You want to explain how you helped other teams, how you handled losses, and how you partnered with these other teams. So, and then for design questions, you want to describe your reasoning. Why did you choose that? Why did you choose that design choice? What were the constraints? What were the benefits? And what were your previous iterations when trying to solve this issue? And then when discussing team roles, you want to be specific. Judges value structure and collaboration among your teammates and want to see how you guys came to this conclusion via teamwork. And then questions about learning, outreach, marketing, and fundraising, you need to focus on impact. So just because you guys did X, Y, Z does not mean that it had an impact. You need to state explicitly how that event had an impact on your community. Say what you did, who you reached, and why it mattered in your community. So that can go over like, does your team perform any specific types of community service? Has your team reached out to other teams in that way? How do you mark your team and how you fundraises? Again, it's about specifics. How did you guys do that? So aside from outreach questions, you guys are probably going to get technical questions. Now, it's important to note that the judges will ask the same 2 questions to every team about their technical work. So coerce during a competition about what they're asking and be prepared for it when you guys will go into that room, because they will most definitely ask that question. It's a big tip, and you guys, it's good. It's a good question to really nail home, because you guys will know what they're asking and how to ask it and how to answer it properly. So you guys, first of all, want to explain how your robot improved over time through testing and iteration. Specifics, again, are key. They want to know how you guys advanced throughout the season and how you guys improved your skills. And so during so you want to define their engineering design process. So go through each step, how you guys did it, and give examples. And then how does your team brainstorm ideas? Describe how you, again, like the engineering process, how you guys went through it, how you guys completed it, and the amount of iterations, amount of times you had to go through it, etc. So, and then what sensors, hardware did you guys use on your team and why you chose them? So pretty much they're asking about control. How did you guys use sensors like Limelight, color sensors, odometry pods like that? And this year, they're actually really important because of this year's Decode game with shooting balls. You can really hone in how you guys improve on Limelight, especially if you guys are like a rookie team who don't really have that much programming experience, how you guys learned and were able to use Limelight or odometry pods or color sensors or stuff like that. And so when discussing team roles, you guys really should be specific. Judges value, I was reading from somewhere else. And then what specific team did you guys encounter during your season that influenced the current design of your robot? So pretty much, again, with like the engineering design process, you guys really want to like show about your iteration, your designing, how you guys accomplish that, and again, the trade-offs and challenges of that. So like our team does like a cost-benefit analysis, and right now we're going through a big one about sorting and stuff like that. So you guys really should take into account what solutions are best for your team and which solutions are not. And so if your team has a sibling team like we do, Clearview has actually 4 sibling teams, something that they really want to hone in is sustainability. So pretty much like how they want to see how you guys will progress throughout the future and sustain FTC in your school. And that's a really good way to get the Sustain Award. Now, and then you want to explain how, so, and where there are any activities that your team took or lead. They want to explain independence and where your team took charge among your other sibling teams. And how did you guys work, or how does your school manage to organize X different teams? They really want to see like a different spark. How is this team different from this? They just don't want to see like a big homogenous group of teams. Like they want to see like, how is this team different from this team, from this team? Clearview may have 4 different teams, but they all have their own different vibe, their own different leadership. They have their own different way of doing things. They have their own different skill levels, whether being rookie or experienced in FTC robotics. They want to see how your team is different from others, but how you guys collaborate and take advantage of being sibling teams. And so you guys are obviously going to handle. So this is some tips on how to handle technical questions. So you guys really want to understand before answering. You guys really want to make sure that you guys can comprehend it fully and give the correct answer. It's okay to ask for them to repeat the question, to give you more time to think. You just make sure that you guys understand the question. And you guys, and this is the biggest thing about judging, is to stay calm and composed. Breathing is key. It works a lot for me and probably a lot of others. You guys don't stress out. They're, again, like from the beginning, they're just your friends. They just want to learn more about your team. And so they want to seek input. If unsure, turn to your team for input. It's okay if you guys don't know a question. They just want to see how you guys will work together when answering a question. Again, with honesty is key. It's okay if you guys don't know it. Just make sure to offer to find out. And use examples. Again, like throughout this entire time, use specifics, use examples. Explain answers with specific examples from your robot and outreach. They are key, and they'll make your team stand out regardless from other teams. And I'll hand it off to Stephen.
So I'm going to go over basically an overview of the meeting, some tips and tricks, some do's and don'ts. So, I'm sorry, that's the wrong way. Yeah, okay. So some basic presentation skills, right? The first part is you want to be clear and concise as possible, right? If you're in the position of a judge and you have a team kind of going up right in front of you, and they're just mumbling, speaking over their words, they're not clear in their points, and they ramble on and on and on and on and on, your focus kind of gets divided, right? You can't clearly focus on what they're saying, you can't hear everything, and information gets lost along the way. Now, if this is your team, this is kind of bad because you've done such wonderful and amazing things throughout the year, and it's a shame that the judges don't get to hear it, which is why it's so important that you guys are clear and concise, right? Enunciate your words. Don't mumble. Don't blend them into each other. Make sure you're speaking well, and make sure your points are concise, because if you keep on rambling information, like I said, judges aren't going to have an easy time kind of pinpointing what you're trying to say. This kind of also ties into voice projection. Make sure you're loud enough, right? It's the same kind of thing with clear and concise. If they can't hear you, they can't decipher the information, and more info gets lost. Eye contact and body language are 2 extremely, extremely, extremely big points, right? These are things that you don't even have to say to kind of have an impact. Both of these things allow you to appear confident. And when you appear confident, you typically end up speaking a bit more confidently, right? Eye contact kind of shows that you're attentive, you're in the conversation. You're not like glancing around at like a random object in the room, right? Body language, for a very similar thing. You don't want to be crossing your arms or being in like a closed off position. You want your shoulders back. You want to stay smiling and paying attention. You seem a lot more open. Practicing and rehearsal. I'm pretty sure James said this before, but practicing is key to succeeding in judging, right? You can practice individually, but practicing as a team is what I personally recommend. It allows you not to only learn your part, but it also allows you kind of to see how everything ties in together, how the person before you kind of leads into what you're going to say, how what you're going to say kind of cues the next person to start speaking. And finally, engagement, right? Judges, when they're doing judging, they see so many kids, so many people just standing up in front of them, talking on and on and on and on, right? And what they're saying might be interesting, but after a while, it kind of gets repetitive, which is why I personally recommend kind of using a physical element to keep the judges focused and involved, right? If you're talking about a technical part about the robot, you can kind of move forward, mess around with the robot, kind of showcase what you're describing, And the biggest point of that is stepping forward, right? Kind of separating yourself from the rest of the team so they can focus solely on you when you're speaking, right? You can bring artifacts and other parts to demonstrate like what the system's supposed to do. And also, I find talking with your hands also helps. Not only like just gets you moving a little bit more, but also adds a visual component into your speaking. So now that we got those general presentation tips out of the way, let's talk about specifically judging. First off, again, be prepared, right? If you know your material, you'll be fine, right? You know what you're going to say. You know how all the points tie in together. You have a clear understanding of what your team has done. You'll be fine because you'll be able to kind of enunciate and tie in the story that your team has been creating throughout this past season, tie all of the hard work you guys have been doing, and translate that over to the judges. Next, show engagement. Like I said before, judges see so many people just standing there talking all day. By you being engaged, it also causes them to be a bit more engaged. The more enthusiastic you are, the louder you speak, the more energy you have, kind of allows them to kind of feed off that energy. Confidence, again, it's kind of said without being said, but the more confident you are, the more professional you seem, the more likely you probably are to get an award. If you're in the judge's position and you see one team, all of the members' shoulders are like rolled back, they're all looking down, all avoiding eye contact, versus a team that can speak distinctly, who's looking at you, whose shoulders are back, that looks confident. The team that looks confident is more than likely going to get the award. Next, be respectful. You want to show courtesy to the judges and both your teammates. This is because, apart from just being a good person, a human being, these judges are basically your sales rep, right? In the panel of all these other judges, it's their responsibility to decide and almost market your team and advocate for them on why they deserve a certain award, right? And when you're not talking, you always want to try remaining as still as possible. You can be attentive, you have to listen, but try avoiding doing any fidgeting or anything like that. This basically brings attention away from the person who's talking and can divide the judge's attention. Next and finally, for the do's, is smile, right? It kind of goes in with being engaged and being like enthusiastic. If it looks like you hate being there, the judges won't really feel like good energy, right? If you smile, if you're like look like you're happy, like you want to be there, it'll make a more positive impact on the judges. So we went over what to do. Now let's go over what not to do. Right. First, and I think one of the most important is don't overwhelm them with jargon. This kind of goes into the information getting lost category. Using technical terms with your teammates and people that you know robotics well, it can save a lot of time, but these judges don't necessarily have a lot of experience with building robots. So throwing out some big, weird, fancy word that they don't know can cause them to be a little bit confused, can cause them to not advocate for that specific part of your robot properly. Right? Show you can, and in this kind of vein, you want to tie this in with being engaged with the judges. If a judge doesn't know what a linear slide is and you talk about linear slides and physically show them what it does on the robot, not only does it help them learn that new term, but it also allows them to apply it when describing your team to the other judges. You also want to avoid speaking over teammates. Your team is supposed to like be a sense of unity with judges, right? They're supposed to see this big professional robotics team doing this wonderful, great thing that I know you all have been. So giving everyone a chance to contribute kind of showcases how everyone's been a part of this process. Everyone's been working together and everyone knows how to work together well, right? You can add to someone if you really want to once they're done talking, but you don't want to just interrupt them, cut them off, because that's kind of rude and kind of ties back to the respect part. Don't guess answers is another big one. I've seen a lot of people when they don't know something try and just fill it in with things that aren't necessarily true. And this can harm your team because if it's later found out that what you said was lying, it can kind of like demerit your team. and you could potentially lose an award you otherwise were going to win. You want to avoid negative language. This is another really, really big one. And a lot of people on my own team kind of fall in this caveat as well, where they'll say, oh, well, we had these challenges and we couldn't do this, we couldn't do that, we didn't have enough time for that. And all of it just has a very negative tone, right? If you can, you want to try spinning these into something on a more positive note, right? So instead of like, for example, on 9848, Jonah was talking a little bit about the sorter and like how we're kind of iterating it. Instead of saying, oh, well, we couldn't add the sorter because we didn't have enough time, we weren't good enough to implement it quickly enough, you want to say that you chose not to do it for a specific reason, right? For example, oh, this took too long to do, so we decided to not do it, implement this other solution instead, so we can more efficiently score with a lot of time that we have. This kind of makes the challenges seem less like challenges and more like a reason why a different path was taken. And like I said, it has a more positive tone, a more positive impact. You can also use resources like cost-benefit analyses to kind of showcase this, where this costs too much money, it doesn't align with our team goals, and it would take way too much time to actually implement. So all in all, it just wasn't worth it. That has a lot more positive tone than just, oh, we didn't do it, we didn't have enough time, right? Now let's go into some resources for everyone, just some additional information in case anyone was wondering. So the first one, and I would argue one of the most important, is the FTC Game Manual. If anyone hasn't read it, I would definitely recommend reading it. It's essential for understanding game rules, requirements, awards, and everything in that regard. Game Manual 0 is an unofficial FTC resource that kind of explains rules, dynamics, stuff like that. It's definitely very useful for anyone who's just starting out at robotics and wants like a quick place to find all this information. FTC Forum is more of a Q&A type resource with FTC judges. So if you have any questions pertaining to the game, rules, regulations, stuff like that, that's where you want to go. Other teams and have websites and blogs where you can find out some of their events at. They might be hosting a workshop very similar to this one online, and your team could potentially join that. As well as online ones, you could also do local FTC workshops and seminars. I know GearView, we typically host one in August for teams. And mentorship from experienced teams, right? So feel free to email us at any time. We check our emails like very regularly. I know I check every single day. If you have any questions whatsoever about robotics, outreach, technical stuff, programming stuff, anything at all, we will make sure to respond to you. You can find additional questions at the FTC Judging Bank, and I believe James is going to post that in chat soon enough. This has more of those sample questions that Jonah was talking about. These are very helpful, and most likely these are going to be one of the two. These are going to be some of the questions that judges ask every single team. So having an answer for each and every one of these is recommended. It also gets you thinking a little bit more about a certain aspect of your robot, and you can kind of tie those answers to a potentially different question. And then GearView is also hosting a mock league tournament on February 7th, where not only will we have practice judging, so you can apply what you learned here directly then, we also have portfolio review and practice elimination matches. So you guys can kind of get a feel of what leagues is like before actually getting there, kind of settle some nerves. And we're also going to be there to like answer any questions or any assistance you guys may need. So it is time for Q&A. Let us get over here and...
Thanks, Stephen. I'm going to remind folks that they can put questions in the Q&A. We don't have any there yet. And if the participants don't have any questions, I might pepper our presenters with some questions that they can help illuminate more information. I'll also say this is my 4th year as a judge for FTC. And if I've learned anything about judging, it is while these 3 presenters here have really talked about what they do as a high performing team. I want to just encourage anybody who is new to presenting and judging that the judges really do understand that. They want you to have a really positive experience, and your presentation style, while being an advantage, if you struggle or if you're nervous or if you stop and start again, none of that is counted against you from the judge's perspective, right? It's really about the content that you're sharing, but it's true to the information that was shared. The way that you share it can make a difference, and so it's really worthwhile to take some of these tips into play. So while you are all thinking about questions, I noticed that most of the individuals on the call are from sibling teams at Clearview, but we do have a couple of folks that, and my apologies, I don't always remember who's on what team. If you are not on one of the sibling teams, and welcome to our sibling team. So I want to discount the fact that some of you are here in support. If you're not from a sibling team at Clearview, if you would put the team that you're associated with in the chat so we can know who you're connected to. And I'm going to kick off the first question to our panel. So this we'll ask Stephen and Jonah and James each to think about this response. And thank you, Karis from Honeycombs. Awesome to have you here. If you could give a little bit of insight, all three of you have been in robotics for a while. If you could give a little bit of an insight, go back to when you were a rookie, go back to thinking about being new to this judging process. What would be a tip that you would give to someone who is brand new and really trying to do that first experience with the judging process?
So, I mean, I can go first if you two don't mind. So, the first thing my mind goes to is it's not as bad as it seems, right? The thought of that I had when I was first joining robotics and I heard about judging is I heard, oh, big scary presentation in front of these two highly trained professional people. And it's really not like that, right? It is a presentation and it is in front of two people, but as Jonah was saying, these judges want to help you, right? They're not here to like scrutinize your every movement. Oh, his arms are crossed for 1 second, immediately disqualified. Like, they're here to help you out. They're here to hear you out and help you out in any way they can.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jonah?
All right, so I'll go next. So when I was a rookie, I think that the biggest, because I was never a good presenter, I was never like good at public speaking pretty much when I was, especially in my rookie years. So I think that one of the best things I can say is to not get jumbled up on your words and to focus on breathing. I did talk about this like a little bit in my spiel earlier, but just like calm your nerves down, make sure that your words are concise and clear, and you know what you're talking about. So I think Stephen taught me this when we were doing our first round of practice judging, is the breathing technique of breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold out for 4 seconds, and then repeat. It's the box breathing method. That has helped me so many times. I can't even say. I've done that every year for the past 3 years I've been in FTC. I've used that method every single time I've gone to judging, and it's helped me so much. Is to just focus on breathing, calm down your nerves, and you'll be golden.
Great advice. Thank you. James.
Oh, there it goes. I would say, especially in like my first year of robotics, I wasn't nearly as engaged as I am now. And so the whole judging thing, it almost seemed very tedious. It's a lot of work that gets put into it. And I know especially making a script, no one wants to do it. It's not like a very fun thing, but it really, really, really helps. And this comes back to preparation a lot. I know my first year, I was not very prepared going in, and it made the experience very nerve-wracking because you're thinking, if they ask me this question, and obviously that's a thought in your head. They're not going to specifically point you out, but say they pointed me out and asked me a question about a certain thing, I wouldn't know what to say, and I'd have to make something up on the spot because I wasn't as prepared. And so for those that aren't as engaged, maybe, or like are just getting into it, focus on, take the time, suck it up and make a script. I know it's not very fun, but take the time to read that over and really understand what you're going to go and say before you get in the room, because that's going to take a lot of the stress off your shoulders. And also understand that you're going in with a team who's there to support you as well. Obviously, we've expressed that the judges aren't there to minimize what you're going to say or scrutinize you. They're there they're your salesmen, and they're there to hear what you have to say. And so understanding that there's a lot less stress in it than you think that there is, and it's a lot less of I'm going and I have to, express all that my team has done. It's not as much like that. It's more you're going in as a part of the team, and you just have to advocate for a specific thing that you've practiced over and over again, and it'll really help you out.
Thanks, James. No questions in the Q&A yet, but I still have a couple in my mind to ask. So I'm going to keep doing that. But please, if you have a question, go ahead and add it to the Q&A. And just giving our presenters a little warning, I think we'll start with Jonah, then go to James, and then Stephen with this next question. You've all talked about the importance of practice and the importance of breathing and being ready. Even with all of that, you may have members of your team that feel really, really nervous or anxious about presenting. And the rules say that you need at least 2 people, right, in the presentation room, though your team may be larger. Could you give some thoughts to, if you have, so one of the rules is you're not required to speak if you're in the room necessarily, but it's great to have the whole team there if you can. It's great to have them all participate. Could you give some ideas of how you would encourage participation among a team member who maybe is a little bit less confident about the presentation and Q&A?
Yeah. So pretty much, like, even if like they're not really engaged, they're not really confident about what they're talking about, I think that the easiest thing to talk about personally whenever going into a judging room is just talk about what you've done. Like me personally, like last year, I did a lot of programming work. So that's obviously something that came off as the easiest. Because I knew everything about programming. I knew all the methods, the constructors, I'll have our auto and teleop work. So like it pretty much, I feel like it flows off the tongue. You kind of get into it. You're kind of on a roll. And sometimes you don't even notice that you're talking about it because you're just going on about it. And of course, don't, like what Steven said earlier, like don't like jumble them up. Don't like just go on with jargon. But like I feel like that the easiest way to talk about what you've done is, the easiest way to get over that is just talk about what you've done, how you've contributed to your team. And even if it's big or small, it still matters a lot about what you've done. And obviously, of course, focus on breathing if you're nervous or have the jitters when going in. And you'll be good.
Going off a little bit what Jonah said, find what each team member is kind of passionate about, what they enjoy doing, what they do on your team, and have that be the focus of what they're saying. You don't want to have someone who is not very confident with outreach trying to talk about outreach when they have no idea what exactly it is they're saying. They don't remember doing these things. They don't have much knowledge in it. And so that'll, be a little bit stressful for that person, especially if they're not as, as well-versed in presenting. And also in a more practical approach, say you have a teammate that has expressed that, like, they're not confident at all, and they've been practicing, and maybe they're still just not getting to the point where they're comfortable presenting like that. There's ways to kind of have this person present, because obviously we want the whole team there and want the whole team, adding to the conversation. But that doesn't mean that this teammate needs to have a massive portion of the presentation. Maybe you have someone who they've done well on the team, but they're expressing that they're not confident, and they don't think that they can do a good job getting that out there. they can, participate. They can do the opening of the presentation. They can close off the presentation. Maybe they have that enthusiasm. They just can't memorize a script or be confident speaking it. So yeah, you can have them doing smaller parts, or maybe say they're a programmer and you have another programmer. You can split it into two parts and have their part be smaller, more condensed about something more specific. So they don't have to remember as much, but they can still speak on it confidently. And then they feel as though, okay, I've done my part. It's not stressful. It was well articulated, but they've still contributed.
All right, so I'm gonna say something a little bit more different than what Jonah and James just said. I typically, when I'm talking to someone that's having difficulty doing something, I'd like to envision myself in their position and try of thinking of what they would need as an individual, right? I feel like motivating someone works a lot better if you kind of personalize it and base it around what you already know about them, right? Personally, for me, what I would do is I would just have a talk with them, right? I would sit down as a team, create a welcoming environment, and discuss their worries, why they're afraid to do this, why they don't feel confident, and kind of find a solution through that. And because it's not as simple as just like, oh, just get up there and speak. It's difficult because public speaking is, I think, one of the most common fears in the world. And robotics, when people join robotics, they mostly thinking about building robots. They don't think about the presenting aspect of it. But encouraging people to participate in judging helps build soft skills, public speaking, communication, things like that. So just getting down, sitting, talking with them, figuring out why they're afraid or why they don't feel confident, and finding a solution through that is how I personally would deal with the situation.
Great. Thank you. And James, just knowing that I'm going to probably go to you first, and then Stephen, and then Jonah. So I'm going to give you a scenario. So we'll talk a little bit about pit judging. So I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's say your team, as you guys have all talked about, you have members of the team who each have done key parts to the work of building the robot or doing your outreach. And let's say your drive team, your key person that does programming or your key person that did outreach is on the drive team, and they are queuing. The rest of your team is at the pit, and here come the judges. And it's clear that they're going to be asking questions about programming or about outreach. What's the best way for you as a team to manage that, to prepare for it, but then also manage it if, in your mind, the key person that you'd want the judges to talk to isn't at the pit when the judges come?
So I think the wrong way to go in this situation is to say that we don't have anybody here that can answer that question for you. Come back at a later time, because the judges, they have limited time for each team. And you have to look at it almost as if it's a privilege or a really good opportunity that's not guaranteed necessarily that they came to your table. So you always have to make the most of it. So I think it really comes down to that's a more of a team issue that needs to get discussed, is if there's only one person on the team that's capable of going over how your team works with programming, then there's an underlying issue. Even if, say, two members of the drive team are your main programmers, everybody on the team should have enough knowledge about your programming, or at least like the majority. Not everybody has to be experts on it, but there should always be somebody for each category, or a few people that know what they need to know about the team to be able to answer these hard questions, because it's not always going to be your strong suit. Like, I do design, and they're not always going to come to the pit if I was the only one there and ask about why we don't have a sorting system anymore. They might ask about, how our robot operates in autonomous, or how we've organized events and gained mentors. So it all comes down to preparation.
Thank you.
So I do agree with James in some regards. I do disagree a little bit, but so what I do agree with is that there should be more than one person that can speak on each aspect of the robot, right? I also think it's good practice to take into consideration who knows what information and what other priorities they have. Like the drive team, that's a big one. If someone else is just kind of out and away, they couldn't make it, they had another responsibility that day, you want to make sure that everyone at least knows a little bit of something. You can also use any graphics that you have at the pit to kind of help you out if you're trying to speak on it. I personally would kind of ask them to come back at a later time if possible. And I add that if possible because if it's not, then sure, you can go ahead, you can speak on it on their behalf. But if you know that someone can speak on this better than you can and improve the likelihood of your team getting an award, I would try making sure that they can try and get over there during a time that is best for your team. I'm pretty sure we had this happen to us during, I think it was States last year, where I think it was a control judge kept on coming over talking about what does auto do? Can you tell us about the reverse trigonometry your Limelight uses to detect the samples? And Ben just wasn't there. He was out doing something. I forget where he was, but we just told them to come back, right? Because if we want to maximize our chances, we want the person who can speak with the most knowledge on the topic to be that. And if it's not possible for them to come back, if they have like 2 minutes before before they have to go, then sure, you can speak to them. But I would try making sure that whoever can speak on it best is there and present, or at least someone who can speak with equal eloquency, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with both of y'all. I mean, I do think that especially when it comes to like your drive team, I would put that on the fault of the team in general. That if say like a specific programmer is your coach, I would say that like 50. I mean, whenever the team is not there, I mean that's kind of on the team at that point when you send away your designated programmer, for instance, every time there's a match. So I would say should really be prepared about everyone knowing a general amount of stuff. So I would also say you like say what you know. So like for instance, like during my rookie year, it was a pit judge that came to our team and he was asking about the design of our robot. But the issue was that I was on outreach. I didn't really know much about building. So, but I knew what our robot looked like in the game. So I started talking about some stuff that's like a little bit different about our robot, stuff that's like innovative about it, etc. But I didn't really know much about the robot, but I knew what it looked like and I knew some other stuff. And even if I couldn't give the best answers, I gave something. And I obviously specified that like our builder was out right now and they can come back, of course, at a later time. But this is pretty much like what I know about it. And also what Steven said, if you're really stuck about something, refer to your documentation, refer to your portfolio or any boards that you guys have at your thing. So if you're really stuck, I'd hand them the portfolio and say all of our own programming is here, and say whatever you know about programming or the specific topic, but also refer to it as like a more in-depth option, I'd say.
That's great. Thank you. You've outlined the challenges, I think, really well, and your teams will have to do a little bit of an analysis. And what is the benefit of asking the judges to come back versus the chance that they might not have time to come back and you've missed your opportunity? So it's really something that teams can talk about. I would encourage you, as a judge myself, I would encourage that if you do ask the judges to come back, that you're really specific. You think about, when what your match list looks like, and say, like, we know that we won't have a match between this time and this time, and encourage the judges to come back at a particular time. and then make sure someone's there, right? This particularly impacts smaller teams more because obviously if you've got 4 of your members either queuing or on the competition field and you have a team of 7, you have far more left in the pit. If you have a larger team, you really can spread the wealth a little bit more and have more than one person be able to talk about different aspects. I think that if you can have that depth in your team so that folks that are knowledgeable are always at the pit, I think that's your best bet. But don't think you can't say to the judges, look, this is not the best time for us. We're queuing or I know sometimes we walk up at the table and there's panic happening because the robot is not working and they're going to be queuing shortly. We're very sensitive that you are all very busy during that time and that you may be fixing something and trying to get back on the competition field. And so don't feel afraid to ask the judges to come back, but also know that this is really your opportunity to utilize pit judging and you want to take advantage of it. So thank you so much to our 3 presenters. I will just ask if there's anybody, there was no questions in the Q&A, and I'm pretty sure it's working because I've seen some people at least post in the chat. Want to make sure that if there's any questions, we only have a couple minutes left, that you go ahead and put them in the Q&A now. And I promise you, if you put one in there, we'll do our best to answer it quickly before we end. But Steve, if you could go to the next slide.
I would also like to say, if anyone has any questions, feel free to email us again.
Oh, absolutely. You guys should hopefully know how to get a hold of GearView, and there's some contact information right here on the slide. And I'm going to, as we close or get ready to close our time tonight, I want to thank you very much for attending. I want you to remind you, and if you're here and you're a coach, please join us next week for the Coaches Q&A. If you're here and you are a member of a team, please encourage your coach to come and join us next week. Same time, Thursday next week, 6 p.m. For the Coaches Q&A. And also a real plug for participating in our mock league tournament on February 7th. We've got a question here from Robert in the Q&A. If someone freezes up when given a question by a judge, and it has been many seconds, would it be good to have a plan set for someone who is also informed to jump in and answer that question, or wait for the nervous team member to gather their thoughts? We'll just ask one of you to answer that question, and that will be how we end our time. Who would like to give that a go? Stephen?
I can do it if none of you two want to. So, I mean, I would definitely recommend that. I would say even before 12 seconds. I would say after maybe like 6 seconds of silence, that someone else jumps in. The worst part about judging is, I think, just trying to wait for an answer, especially because time is so limited, right? Judging is very much a kind of a battle of time management and getting as much said as you can without muttering. So I would say, yeah, after like 6 seconds, have someone that also knows kind of step up, have the nervous team member gather their thoughts, and maybe add on at the end of the person who intervened. So then they can still kind of say what they want to say, but the time isn't wasted with just silence.
And it's a really great way that you can be graciously professional in that, and that you look at your teammate and say, hey, would you like some help? Or I think I could help you answer that. And this way, if the teammate was ready to collect themselves, they could wave you off and say, no, I'm good. And then the judges will see that you guys are working it out together and you're not overstepping your bounds. Thanks, Robert, for the question. And thank you all for your time, your attention. Really appreciate our 3 presenters. And I hope that you have a wonderful evening.